Johnny, please tell me why my car is in the front yard and I'm sleeping with my clothes on, and why the Angels are their own worst enemy. And it happened again on Wednesday night, and I guess we got to talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on Sirius XM by searching Locked On Angels. The best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, you know, you and I have been fans of this team for years, and it's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure, to be here talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday. The only place who's doing it Monday through Friday, the number one daily Los Angeles Angels podcast, Locked On Angels. It's our very good pleasure to do this. And don't forget that tomorrow is Fan Mail Friday, so we want you to get in our mailbag with your questions. Of course, we'll recap the game today. It's an early one, early start, so make sure you're tuned in to that game coming up here. If you're watching this in the morning, you might be watching this after the game. But on today's show, the Angels are upset about the sticky tack baseballs in Double-A, and we apologize to Mr. Matt Thaiss once again. But Mike, let's talk about the loss to the O's last night. It was a 3-1 loss. Very unfortunate, very frustrating, right?
Yeah, it was one of those typical Angel games that we've seen so far this season where they just worked against themselves. That first inning, Griffin Canning's in a bases-loaded jam because of an error, and it was Gio Urshela, who is usually pretty solid out there, but it just seems like those things come back to haunt the Angels. In this game, Griffin actually got through that inning, which was great, but he had to throw extra pitches, and he had to work extra hard. And then again, in the fourth inning, there was a double play ball that Zach Neto gets, and he throws to first base. And I know it was kind of a high throw, but Matt Thaiss has this habit of taking his glove, reaching out, and then stepping into it, and then throwing the ball down to second base. And it just looked like he wasn't stretching. It looked like he was.
It looked like an action figure. Like his arm did bend past this motion.
He went from like, I'm on my back foot to I moved to my front foot. And I get that he is not a first baseman naturally, and we are going to talk about him in the show. And so we're not upset, Matt. We're not upset at all. But
not at all.
It's just one of those things that affects the Halos, and it ended up costing them in that inning. And then again, Johnny, it was just a matter of not being able to get any hits off of a guy, by the way, Kyle Bradish, who the Halos traded to get Dylan Bundy. He was one of 4 players, so that was another Billy Epler special. 4 players for Dylan Bundy. That just seems...
Who was good for one season that was 60 games.
Right, and then did you see that in last night's AAA, he actually got thrown out because he had too much sticky stuff, and his ERA is over 10. So
yeah,
Epler,
glad it's working for you.
The ghost of Epler is still affecting this team. And so it was just an all-around kind of meh sort of game, and frustrating to watch as Angel fans. Griffin Canning, again, goes at least 5 innings. And so this guy has actually looked really good this year. I know that his ERA is a tick high, and he gave up the 9 hits, but he's a guy who's eating up innings, and that's what you want at the end of your rotation, number 5, number 6 starter. It's funny because, remember, he was a question mark for this starting rotation. Like, would he make it in, or
now
would
he's
it be
in
somebody else? And now he's in it, and he's actually eating up innings, which is really great. And if the Angels actually backed him up with good defense and a bit of offense, he'd probably be more like 3-3 or 4-1 with his record so far this year, because he hasn't pitched terribly.
The issue with that play, that double play that didn't happen, was that about that time of the double play, Canning was at 61 pitches. This is in the 4th inning. He's at 61 pitches. Then he gets the next 2 outs after that. But if there had been a double play and he would have gotten out the next batter at about the same rate of pitches, he would have been out of that inning. It would have been 63 pitches instead of 76, I believe it was, and it would have been 1-1.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating, is that the Angels are just giving away at bats. They're giving away extra outs. Mike, is that the identity of this team?
It feels like it. I mean, it feels like
Is this who they are? Like
it feels like they just can't get out of their own way. I remember as a young kid, I would watch the Angels in the 90s, and this team this year reminds me of the Angels in the 90s. And there were always like illusions that they were going to be good, and then there were stats that said they're not so good. And one of the stats that I learned early on that actually is a good indicator on if your team is good or not is how they do defensively. And in the 90s, the Angels would like lead the league or be in the top 5 in errors committed. And it was those types of plays that we saw last night. And it was those types of plays that we've seen all season long. And yeah, they're major league ball players and they're talented guys and they could potentially clean it up. It just doesn't seem like there's, I don't want to say a willingness to clean it up. It just doesn't seem like there is a process or practice to clean it up. Like, so 2 nights ago, the Lakers lose in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. And 2 of the players who shot terribly in that game, after the game is over, you know what they're doing, John? They're out on the court after all of the fans have left, and they're shooting. They're shooting again. And quite frankly, if I'm the manager of this team, if I'm coaching on the Angels, nobody's leaving the field after the game until they've taken 56 ground balls, you know, and they've completed the throws and they've put their head down and they got the ball. And I know that sometimes it's hard to recreate in-game play, but there's got to be something that this team needs to do. Benji Gill needs to get these guys out there every single night before or after.
Yeah.
And just say to them, like, do you want to win? Because it just doesn't seem like there is that motivation in them right now.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about this for a month, Mike. We've talked about this last month.
This isn't a repeat episode. This is a new episode,
and
right?
That's the thing is like, we talk about, you know what, these are fixable things that they can fix because they're fixable, because they're professional. Show me, where is it now? Because it's been over a month since this has been going on. And so it's like, do you want this to be your identity for the entire season where you have these winnable games against really tough teams? The fact that it was 3-1 against the Orioles, who have a tremendous offense and have a lockdown bullpen, that's just an equation for disaster if you give away the lead like that. And it keeps happening. It's frustrating. So what is being done here? It starts at the top, like you said, with Phil Nevin and Benji Gill, who's the infield coach. And these guys have to put the hammer down on their players because it's just so sloppy. You saw Hunter Renfroe not get to a ball because Brandon Drury was playing back on it from first base. He's running out there backwards. Hunter Renfroe's trying to call him off. The sun's in both of their eyes, and the ball falls in. And Griffin Canning would have got through the first inning on 5 pitches, Mike. 5 pitches. Ended up being a 10-pitch inning because they extended it. So, again, they just keep giving away these things. And I know we make a joke about, please tell me why they're in their own way, their own worst enemy. But to me, it's Red Hot Chili Peppers and give it away, give it away, give it away. Because they keep doing.
If you look at what happened in that over the shoulder catch that Neto had in left field, he covered 104 feet on the play. Beautiful, spectacular play. But Taylor Ward just looked lost out there. He was running slow. And I don't know if it's just Angel history and left field, but it just like, does every Angel left fielder that has ever played left field, do they all have to run slow and look like they're not hustling? Because I love GA. GA was fantastic, but that was kind of the narrative that got connected to him.
Yes.
And now Taylor Ward's out there, and it just kind of feels like there's no urgency. And then you have a guy like Neto who has to make this spectacular play and over the shoulder play. And I love it because he's a great defender and he's a young guy, which causes me to go, well, how about Mickey Moniak in left field? How about Taylor Ward sit down?
Joe Adell.
And let's, where's Joe Adell? Like, let's bring up these guys who are actually going to be out there and are going to have some urgency and some passion and some fight. Because that's something that you can't coach. That's something that's just natural. The defense, yes, you can coach. But, man, I would love to see these guys actually look like they actually care. And I know that from my perspective, it might be a bit unfair because I don't know what they're thinking and what they're feeling. But quite honestly, Zach Neto looks like he cares.
Yeah. Bring up the guys who care. You see Trey Cabbage, Jared Walsh, and Joe Adell go back to back with home runs. I know Jared Walsh is on his way back. I think that's going to be a really important thing. Seriously, because that issue doesn't happen at first base with Jared Walsh. Mike, can we humble brag for just a minute before we wrap up segment 1?
Yes, please.
Mike Trout was the Angels' only run, and he scored it on a home run that was up and away, and he sent that ball up and away. And here's what I noticed, because you and I were talking yesterday about how these guys definitely have the scouting report on Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Because that up and away zone, he had a 0 average there because he hasn't hit anything. He hasn't gotten a hit from there. So you noticed it with Dean Cosmo Kramer.
Mm-hmm.
You noticed it with Kyle Bradish, who also was throwing up and away. And he actually got Mike Trout there. No, he didn't strike him out, but he did throw it up there. He did strike him out on a slider in the first inning. Then Trout notices, hey, Bradish is throwing to that spot. And that's what caused him to hit that ball out, because he identified it, he adjusted, and he made the change. And again, he's hitting fastballs. Some of them are flyouts, some of them are foul balls, but he got a hold of that one at the top of the zone. Again, you and I said yesterday, he's got a 667 on pitches up and in, and like a 540 something at the dead center of the zone, at the top of the zone. And now he's got an average on that far and away pitch because he hit that home run.
Crushed it.
And that's what we're talking about. He's making adjustments. He's catching up to the fastball timing. He's getting his swing started a little bit sooner, and he's identifying where his holes are and where pitchers are throwing the ball because they're trying to take advantage of the holes in his swing. So he made that adjustment. There's a great article from Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register about this exact topic that came out yesterday, but it was really gratifying to talk about Trout yesterday and then see him make the adjustment in last night's game. Hey, the Angels are back at it today at 9:35 a.m. Pacific time. So get your breakfast ready, get your coffee. Maybe if you're on your way to work, you can put it on. And if you are, you're going to hear Tyler Anderson on the mound, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM, on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. And coming up on Locked On Angels, you and I owe Matt Thaiss an apology, and we're going to tell you why coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Bird Dogs. We've mentioned this on the show, but Bird Dogs is a clothing company that's all about your comfort, and they sent us 2 pairs of shorts. Johnny got 2, and I got 2. And let me tell you, this company is awesome, and their shorts are some of the most comfortable in the world. They've got this inner liner that is super comfortable. They look good. They'll make you feel good. And the fabric is stretchy, so it fits you instead of you trying to make it fit. And that's always helpful. Bird Dog gives you the freedom to wear the pair of shorts or pants on the golf course, or to that really important meeting, or on a date, or just hanging out with friends. They're casual and they're comfy. And again, they make you look good. So if you want to be casual, comfy, and look good like we look good, and we know you do, then get yourself a pair of Bird Dog shorts and pants. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB. When you do, Bird Dogs will throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order.
I used that Yeti-style tumbler today, and man, it kept my iced coffee cold all morning long, Mike. It was a beautiful thing.
Yep, and I'm using it actually right now so I don't spill on myself, because I have a tendency to do that.
Or your laptop.
Absolutely. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB. Look good, feel good, and get yourself a pair of pants and shorts from Bird Dogs today.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, join us next Monday for a weekend recap of the series against the Twins. We're going to talk about all 3 games on Monday. Now, don't forget that the Angels are playing the O's today at 9:35 Pacific time. It's the Angels versus the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles just trying to save time. One last game in Baltimore, 9:35 Pacific time on the SiriusXM app. All you got to do is search Angels.
John, there's a lot of controversy about the baseballs in AA right now. MLB is trying out this new enhanced grip baseballs, and they're being used in the Southern League. And these new baseballs are, quote, wreaking havoc in a few ways. Some pitchers are striking out everybody, and then other pitchers can't even throw strikes. Hitters are watching pitches, and they've got really ridiculous movement. Kyron Paris, who is a pretty prominent Angel prospect, he said, it's talked about every day in the locker room. When we step out on the field, we're all competitors. No one wants to make excuses, but someone's going to get hurt. And that's what it's going to come down to. I don't want someone to get hurt, and then that becomes a big topic. So, Johnny, here's what's different about these new baseballs. They're coated in a sticky substance that's supposed to make it tackier and easier for pitchers to grip. The ball is also supposed to be a bit brighter, so it helps the hitters. And MLB, classic Manfred, they've declined to reveal the makeup of the new substance. Like,
maybe it sounds... Bubba Thompson, was that his name, who was making it for the opposing pitchers against
I think so,
the
yeah, for the Angels. Right,
maybe
right.
He's behind this.
Yeah, and it's caused a lot of concern, but specifically, John, it's caused concern for the Halos and Halos management because these new balls are being used in Double-A, and that's where pretty much all of the top prospects are across MLB, but specifically for the Halos, like that's where the Trash Pandas are, right? They're their best minor league team. The best players are there, and they're having to deal with this new ball. And here's the concern that Nevin said that he had. If you look at the numbers and the pitch shapes, spin rates, and vertical and horizontal numbers, they're out of sight. And so we did a bit of a deep dive. And so, Johnny, why don't you share some of the numbers that are coming out of the Southern League from batters and from hitters?
Yeah, batters are striking out at a 30% clip. That's up from 24.9, so about 25 from last season, and 27.5% this point last year. Walks are at 12.5%. That's up 2% from the year prior. Mike, there's more wild pitches. There's slugging percentage is down from 411 last year to 372 this year, and the Trash Pandas are striking out in exactly 1/3 of their plate appearances. And this is just an example of how much the new baseballs can impact development on hitting and pitching.
Yeah. And our boy, Zach Neto, he actually had experience with these new baseballs when he was down in Double-A. He said there was instantly a difference in how the ball was moving horizontally, vertically, everywhere. From the pitcher's side, it's harder to throw it down the middle or anywhere in the zone. And from the hitter standpoint, listen to this, John, it's like you're seeing a wiffle ball. And so that's dangerous when the ball's coming at you at 90, 95, 100 miles an hour. And Angels management is really noticing how it's kind of messing with their top guys. Now, here's some of the positives. Some of the negatives. Eric Torres, he was one of the best relievers in the Southern League last year. He had a 1.59 ERA, 22 saves. He's almost got a 5 ERA.
Right.
He's walked 4, and he's got hit 5 batters in 2 2/3 innings. And then Ben Joyce, who looked good in spring training, and then we're hearing about his lack of control, 7 walks, and he's hit 2 batters in 4 2/3 innings. Like, that's cause for concern, but the problem is that they're not able to evaluate these guys and wonder if it's actually them or if it's the baseball. And that's why Angels management is really, really frustrated. And then on the flip side, guys like Coleman Crow is having a spectacular season. He's got 25 strikeouts and 5 walks in 17 innings. And so, like, they're just not sure how they can evaluate these guys. And again, Kyron Paris says that it's really frustrating. You're working all off season to be professional and get to the major leagues. And then you show up and the ball is completely different. And in fact, Zach Neto said he doesn't think that there's any chance. In fact, he said no chance that this baseball would make it to the majors. And there's been a question if he would even make it until next week, let alone the All-Star break. So, Johnny, I think that the question really is, where would MLB be better suited trying out new things if they're not trying it out in Double-A, where all of the top prospects are, Rob Manfred?
Right, yeah. It's called rookie ball, Mike. Have you ever heard of it? That's where they initiated all the new rules, the bigger bases, the pitch clock. They're doing it in high A and stuff like that, single A baseball. And so the fact that they jumped to Double-A to see how this thing is going to go, which is intrinsically the opposite direction of what you just implemented into the major leagues this season. You got bigger bases, you got a pitch clock, you're cracking down on sticky stuff so that there's better hitting. And all of a sudden, that they put in this new ball in Double-A to what? To make pitchers better? It's the complete opposite direction of the rules that you just implemented. So why are you doing it in Double-A? Number one, because that's an area that matters a whole lot. Number two, why are you making up a new rule or trying out something new that goes in the exact opposite direction of the philosophy that you just implemented? And you got Bryan Cranston doing commercials about how great the new rule changes are. This is ridiculous. And it just shows how butt backwards Rob Manfred is. I almost said it. Sorry, my friends.
Good boy. I appreciate your keeping it G-rated, but you're right. And it just feels so nonsensical. It feels ridiculous. And again, I hear and agree with the Angels management gripes, because how can you evaluate Eric Torres or Ben Joyce in a really appropriate manner? Like,
right.
Would Ben Joyce actually be successful in the major leagues? Probably. Would he be as wild as he's been in the minor leagues? Probably not, but you don't really know unless you try it. And so the Angels have to make this huge risk by bringing up those guys because they can't really evaluate them in the minor leagues. On the plus side, if Neto said it's like hitting a wiffle ball, then hitting in the major leagues should be a piece of cake, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's the thing, though. The way it moves, though, is going to be frustrating, and so they need to do away with it as soon as possible, because it doesn't make any sense for this ball to be anywhere near major league ready talent at this point.
Today's show is brought to you by So Rare. This is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace that transforms you, the fans, into owners with officially licensed digital cards from players, and they're all across the 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents, and you can win really great rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards. There's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. So head to sorare.com/lockedon, that's spelled SORARE.com, to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today.
After a slow start to Matt Thaiss' year in 2023, he has been heating up recently. He helped the Angels find some nice stability at the catching position because of injuries. He's also gotten in over at first base and plays a decent first base. I know we talked about that issue in segment 1. However, he's been doing pretty well as a catcher after the catcher's interference stuff that we were very frustrated with. He's hitting over 400 since going 0 for 12 to start the season. And before tonight's game, he had a 789 OPS, Mike. So that was incredible. So yeah, that first couple of starts were not great. And it was like, okay, well, he's backing up Logan O'Hoppe. This is fine. He's only going to be in there when O'Hoppe needs a day off. Suddenly, he's getting a lot more playing time, and we were concerned that we were missing out on some spectacular catching and production from the catcher spot in the order. And then now that Wallach's back, it's been him and Thaiss tearing it up. And so we're asking the question, first of all, we need to apologize to Matt Thaiss for wanting him off this team and single-handedly costing us a game with the catcher's interferences that we've seen and the way that he was arching the rainbow throws back to the pitcher.
Right.
Mike, I think what's changed for Thaiss is that consistent playing time, right?
Yeah. Nevin actually said it's tough to be in the backup role, especially for catcher, when Logan O'Hoppe was carrying most of the load for the first few weeks. Obviously, he got hurt. It was Thaiss' chance, according to Nevin, and he said he couldn't be happier for him. Thaiss is a rhythm guy, and Nevin was talking about how he needs to know what he's doing and how often he's doing it in order to be successful. And now that he understands that his role has changed, he was a part-time player for a while, but he said now that he understands that his role is to be in there more consistently, it's actually helped with his mindset. He said, it feels good. Anything I can do to help this team win and put together good at-bats, to go out there and get on base for the best part of to really help the team, is I'm excited to do that. And Nevin said he's a student of the game, and that's what he's really seen being in there more often. He's seeing Thaiss really study pitchers, his own pitchers, but also study the opposing pitchers, and then to be somebody that's really working on his craft behind the plate. He said that, Nevin said, he loves having Thaiss back there. So here's an interesting question for you, John, as we think about some of the young guys on this team, Neto, Adele, Trey Cabbage, some of those guys. Is consistent playing time something the Halos should consider with each of their young talent that they're thinking about bringing up?
I was thinking about this the other day because I don't know if you saw David Fletcher had a 5-for-5 game with the Salt Lake Bees. And he's a veteran, right? Like, he's been around long enough to be able to call him a veteran player. He's not a newbie like Zach Neto anymore. But yes, Neto having this consistent playing time, whether it was Double-A or in the majors playing shortstop almost every day. I think he's only had one day off since he's come up, right? These guys having consistent playing time is so crucial, because you think about Neto playing every single day and the way he's blossomed. You think about David Fletcher, who wasn't getting consistent at-bats at the major league level and needed time to get right, especially after the injuries over the last 2 years. It was really important to give David Fletcher consistent playing time, and you see the results of that. You see him doing David Fletcher things. He had one of those weird singles into the outfield between the outfielder and shortstop in that 5-for-5 game, and that's just who he is. But he wasn't even doing that when he was with the Angels. And then you think about Joe Adell and the way that he's been crushing it in AAA because of the consistent playing time. It's a big reason why I think Mickey Moniak is with the big league club and Joe Adell is not, because they knew, for as much as they've been using Moniak, I got to give him credit for getting him in there most days. For as much as they've been using him, I think it's very important that Joe Adell gets everyday at-bats, everyday reps in the outfield, because he's doing really well in left field, guys. Surprise, surprise. And he's doing really well at the plate. He's going to be a strikeout guy. He's going to be like a Hunter Renfroe, who is going to hit you bombs, and he's also going to strike out. I think that's just who he is, Mike. You can always work on your strikeout rate. You can always work on that. But you don't get to work on that without consistent playing time. And I think that's what's most important here. It might be why Trey Cabbage isn't here, because he's been a stud in AAA as well. Now, having said all that, I would love to see those guys up with the big league club right now, especially when you see the inconsistent hitting that the Angels had against the Orioles last night. You just think that they have a chance to come back, and then they just get shut down. I know some of that was the bullpen. A lot of that was Kyle Bradish, who just kept them off the bases a whole lot. And when you have struggling guys, you need to be able to turn to guys who, again, have the energy and the enthusiasm and want to be there, like Zach Neto does right now. There's plenty of those guys in AAA who could be part of this team. All that to say, I think them playing consistently is super important. And I think that all goes back to Matt Thaiss, who's been in there almost every day, even with Chad Wallach back. He's over there playing first, so both their bats are in the lineup. So those are my thoughts on that. How about you?
Yeah, Thaiss has really made himself a benefit to this team because he can play first base. I know, again, we critiqued him, and I don't think he's above critique, but you have to remember he's a catcher playing first base, and so some of his footwork is going to come. What I loved what Phil Nevin said is that he is a student of the game, and so I think that we'll see Thaiss improve if he continues to play first base while Wallach catches. I think we'll see him improve because I think he's somebody that is willing to actually work on his game. Now, when Walshy comes back, obviously Walshy's going to be the guy at first base, but if he needs a day off, you have a lot of options, including Matt Thaiss over there. So I love the fact that he has consistent playing time. We can go back to last year and we can affirm and celebrate Louis Rengifo because Rengifo had consistent playing time, and look at the season that he put up. He hasn't had consistent playing time this year, and you're seeing some of the results of that offensively. And so I think that the Angels, if there's one thing that they can do better with their minor league guys, it's probably give them consistent playing time and knowing that they're going to keep them at AA or AAA or even in the major leagues and being very clear about their role. Think about last year, and you've mentioned this before on the pod, when it was going to be Marsh, Trout, and Adell. And then that all got kind of blown up when suddenly Taylor Ward was going to take the outfield spot. And then you saw Marsh and Adell really struggle because they weren't in there all of the time. They weren't able to play all of the time. And now you're seeing what Marsh is doing, playing every day in Philadelphia. And you're seeing, again, what Joe Adell's doing in the minor leagues, playing every day. And so I think that that actually is just a really wise decision on the Angels' part to give them a place to be constantly.
Thinking about Brandon Marsh and the consistent playing time that he's getting, the Phillies also changed his swing. You see a much smaller toe tap when he's at the plate. Mike, if you're not getting consistent playing time, you're not identifying those issues. The coaching staff is not able to identify those issues. So if the more that you're playing, the more that you're out there, the more that you're struggling because you're in the lineup, the quicker you can fix those things and the quicker the coaching staff can identify those things.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the O's today at 9:35 Pacific time. It might be over, and so we can talk about this tomorrow on tomorrow's show. And Tyler Anderson's on the mound, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, we're hoping for a split of this series before the Halos come back Friday night to take on the Twins. But if you want to keep up with us, follow us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Get your messages in, your questions in, DM us, do whatever you can to get at us and get in our mailbag, because we're doing 2 segments of Fan Mail Friday tomorrow, in addition to the Baltimore Orioles recap. We're recapping today's game for you in segment 1. Then we'll get to fan mail questions after that. Mike, they can also give us a call on our voicemail line, right?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Here's the number, 714-409-6396. Give us a call. Reach out to us. We would love to answer your questions, hear from you. Fan Mail Friday tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that. If you give us a call, keep it around 30 seconds. Just makes it easier on all of us. That would be great. In the meantime, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Let's split this series, please.
We need a victory.
We need to come home.
Don't fall under 500.
Please don't
Stop.
Do it. All right, friends. We'll see you back here tomorrow.